From MTN News, this is Montana This Morning.
That's where we see the value, is that there's systems in place to help people understand how these things run.
Stepping up oversight, how Billings organizations are working to restore public trust after a wave of mismanagement, allegations, and scrutiny.
I'm Kyle Hansen, and coming up, we'll take a look back at the season the Montana Grizzlies have put together ahead of the 124th Brawl of the Wild.
And we are also making a stop at Bobcat Stadium as we charge towards Montana's biggest rivalry, how the MSU Bobcats are getting ready to take their winning record on the road. Those stories and much more coming up in the next hour. Good morning and welcome back to Montana This Morning on this Tuesday, November 18th. I'm Hailey Monaco here with Miller Robson. Miller, I know there might be a lot of people traveling to Missoula this weekend. So how are the roads going to be?
I mean, the weather's not going to be too bad. Okay. I mean, the day of the game, we do have a chance of rain. Could see some scattered showers, so it could dampen anybody out there doing any pregame festivities. But take an umbrella just in case. But we still got a lot of ground to cover before we get there, so that could absolutely change. Let's just hope it's an awesome game this year. All right, great shot there of Miles City right now. Pretty quiet in your area. We do have some cloud cover out there, and we're going to continue to see those temperatures staying above the norm. Let's see here. All right, computer's not playing along this morning. There we go. I've only pressed the button 50 times. 57 was the high yesterday, so about 12 degrees above the norm. Our low of 35, almost 10 degrees above average. And that's just the trend right now. We're going to stay warmer than average, even though we may be a little bit cooler the next couple of days. Now, as we get into next week, we could see the flip side of that, and we'll take another look at that, of course, coming up. Top gust yesterday of 20 miles an hour. Was a dry day, been a dry month. Maybe a drop of rain this morning here in Billings, maybe a slightly better chance tomorrow, but nothing very impactful at all. So a pretty dry stretch. And again, that could change as we get into next week as well. Southern Montana, northern parts of Wyoming, we've got some precipitation, some rain in the lower elevations, and some mountain snow. Even up in the northeast corner, we're seeing a little bit of rain and maybe a wintry mix with temperatures in the 30s and 40s right now. Here in Billings, we sit at 45. As we take a look at our day planner today, we're going to start off with some clouds, maybe some breaks for some sunshine today. Again, very minimal chance we'll see some rain. Our highs today, mainly in the 50s, maybe a few areas could get into the upper 50s to around 60. But yeah, just pretty much warmer than average all the way through probably the early part of next week, and then maybe some big changes next week. If you've missed it last hour, we'll tell you more about those possible impacts for Thanksgiving week coming up.
Yes, as you make your travel plans.
Yeah, it's a good idea, just in case.
All right, Miller, thank you. Okay. And before we take a deep dive into the Brawl of the Wild action, we begin in Washington. Now, the House is expected to vote today on a measure to force the release of the Epstein files. It comes after President Trump changed course and publicly urged Republicans to support the effort. Bradley Blackburn has more on what could happen next.
I think it'll be a large hotel.
In Washington, the House is expected to vote today on the Epstein Files Transparency Act, and it's expected to have at least the two-thirds majority needed to pass.
I think the public has the right to know.
This isn't about President Trump. I mean, this is about women who are seeking justice and finally getting it.
A bipartisan group was already pushing toward this vote when President Trump Sunday changed his position and said he now supports releasing the files, though he still says the Epstein issue is a hoax.
It's really a Democrat problem. The Democrats were Epstein's friends, all of them. And it's a hoax. The whole thing is a hoax.
Questions about the president's ties with Epstein were renewed last week after the release of emails from the late convicted sex trafficker and one-time Trump friend. The president has said they had a falling out more than a decade ago, and he had no knowledge of Epstein's crimes. If the measure passes, it would go to the Senate, where the majority leader hasn't yet promised to take it up. Monday night, the words "release the files now" were projected onto the Justice Department, and some lawmakers are concerned that the president's push for new investigations into the Epstein case could limit what's released.
They may be trying to use those investigations as a predicate for not releasing the files.
Some survivors of Epstein's abuse are expected to speak outside the Capitol Tuesday morning ahead of the House vote. Bradley Blackburn, CBS News, New York.
Among the most outspoken Republican lawmakers in favor of releasing the files is Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. She says she's received threats since coming out in favor of releasing the files. Well, back here in Montana, a fresh step forward for Billings nonprofits after weeks of local organizations making headlines over mishandling funds. Efforts are now underway to restore public confidence. The Billings Chamber and 2 other local groups are stepping in, pledging to rebuild trust through transparency and stronger oversight. Our Isabel Spartz reports on how they plan to do it.
We've seen the allegations. In recent months, 3 Billings nonprofit leaders have come under fire. Centennial Ice Arena's former director, Sean Michael Gilmore, was arrested and charged last month with embezzling over $15,000 in funds. In September, the Montana Rescue Mission's executive director, Matt Lundgren, was fired after an internal investigation. The mission has since made efforts to do better, while keeping their main goal, serving the community, top of mind.
One of the things that we've done in all of the leadership changes is reopen lines of communication with area partners.
When former CEO of New Day, Sherry Lynn Bolter, was charged with embezzling property and forgery,
We definitely got phone calls of people taking pause.
city organizations took notice. Zach Terakidis with the Billings Community Foundation says his organization was working with New Day for 10 months prior to Bolter's charges.
Their number one priority is they could not have a disruption in service, even as they deal with leadership transition.
Terakidis says while these few have shown mismanagement, they've corrected properly, and there are many more doing right.
We want to make sure people are confident in what's going on and knowing that those missteps are being taken care of internally with those organizations.
It's those situations that prompted the Foundation, the Billings Chamber, and United Way to all write an open letter Friday as a way to address the concerns that the community may have surrounding nonprofits.
In most cases, it's not the good work that they're doing that's the problem, it's just that they don't understand a certain aspect of their nonprofit structure.
The 3 are working together to offer more trainings, tools, and education opportunities on top of resources they already offer.
We're going to start working directly with board executives to make sure those board executives have the tools they need to understand nonprofit finance, building their endowments.
Thanks to a large grant, it's all free of charge. It's a step in the right direction and a step towards bringing back public trust in a sector that does so much for our community.
Keep encouraging people to come out and support, and I think the number one is just get involved. Be involved, you'll know what's happening, and that's where we really need our community to always step up.
In Billings, Isabel Spartz, MTN News.
Isabel, thank you. Well, police in Sheridan say they're seeing a new scam, with scammers using police scanner traffic to target victims with fake emergency calls. Sheridan police say a man received a call from someone claiming to be a paramedic working an accident involving his sister and infant. The caller eventually directed him to Walmart, but the story kept changing. Sheridan police chief says the scammer had monitored a real crash earlier that day, then used those details to make the hoax seem legitimate. Now, the would-be victim hung up and called his sister, who was safe. The chief says many police departments are now encrypting radio traffic to prevent scammers from accessing personal information. Well, Dallas Stadium is once again in the spotlight at Monday night's school board meeting. Construction of the nearly century-old facility is almost underway. But in the meantime, leaders are deciding on naming rights for a number of the venue's features. It comes after officials approved the name of Sam McDonald Memorial Stadium at Dallas a few weeks ago, ultimately beating out Heaton and Cook with a $2 million bid over 5 years. Last night, the school board approved Bill Underreiner to sponsor the stadium's lighting for $250,000, while Shields won naming rights for the new track at $1 million. School officials say naming rights on this $14 million project are still open for the field itself, the home locker room, and the west entrance, and almost $12 million have been raised for the project, with the demolition of the west grandstands set for the beginning of December on December 12th. Well, the 124th Brawl of the Wild is officially here as the countdown to kickoff begins. This week, the Montana State University Bobcats are getting ready to make their way to Missoula, squaring off against rivals, the University of Montana Grizzlies. The Grizz enter this matchup number 2 in the country and at 11-0 on the season. MTN's Kyle Hansen takes a look back at the season that has led up to this moment.
It's arguably the biggest brawl of them all, as number 2 Montana and number 3 Montana State will meet right here at Washington Grizzlies Stadium on Saturday at noon, with the outright Big Sky Conference Championship on the line. But before we look forward, let's take a look back and see how the 11-0 Grizzlies got to this point. The Grizzlies were the preseason number 7 team nationally, and the biggest storyline entering the season would be their schedule, with the bye coming in week 1, followed by 12 consecutive games. Opened it with a bang over Division II Central Washington, and followed that up with a thriller against North Dakota, where the Grizz scored in the final minutes after trailing all game to pick up the statement win. A blowout over Indiana State followed that, which set up a then top 10 nationally televised night game against Idaho, where the Grizz rolled past the Vandals to retain the Little Brown Stein, and the Grizz offense began to solidify itself as one of the best in the FCS. The first road trip of the season was after that, where again the team faced a high-powered offense and adversity from the Bengals, but a breakout game from Michael Wortham lifted the Grizz to a comeback victory in Pocatello. A homecoming date with Cal Poly marked the halfway point, as broke out the throwback copper and gold uniforms. And after beating the Mustangs, Montana welcomed Sacred Heart the next week in a mid-season non-conference contest. That marked 6 home games in 7 weeks, and another win for the Grizzlies. Game 8 brought all the fireworks as Montana traveled to Sacramento State, and with plenty of trash talk leading up to the game, the Grizz took home the Panda Bowl after another offensive onslaught under the lights on national TV once again. A road win over Weber State would snap a losing streak in Ogden, and the following week, played Eastern Washington too close for comfort, as a fumbled spike by the Eagles proved to be the difference, as the Grizzlies held on. And the latest chapter was a return to Providence Park in Portland, as the Grizzlies used 5 interceptions and plenty of offense to blow out the Vikings. So now it's the 124th Brawl of the Wild, and while is locked into a bye in the opening week, a win over the Bobcats would solidify home field advantage in the playoffs, and of course, bragging rights within the Treasure State. Reporting in Missoula, Kyle Hansen, MTN Sports.
And MSU's Bobcats are starting off in the number 3 seed, going 9-2 so far this season overall. Now the Brawl of the Wild matchup against the Grizz could bring the Cats' first win away from home. MTN's Grace Lawrence joins us from Bobcat Stadium in Bozeman with what to keep an eye out for.
If you want to talk about high stakes, then let's talk about the 124th Brawl of the Wild that will take place on Saturday. High seeding, a Big Sky championship, and bragging rights will all be on the line. Montana State sits at 3rd in the country, 9-2 overall, and will try and grab the first road win in this series since 2018 this upcoming Saturday. Let's see how they got here. The Cats had a gauntlet to start the season, which began in Eugene, Oregon, against one of the top FBS teams in the Ducks. After a 59-13 loss, the attention turned to Gold Rush, a top 3 matchup against South Dakota State. The game had it all, a blocked punt for a score, wild touchdowns, and ended in double overtime, where the Cats fell inches short and lost 30-24. But the team would not let an 0-2 start define the rest of the year, as they finished the non-conference 2-0 and stamped a major 57-3 win over Eastern Washington in Bobcat Stadium to start conference play. The attention turned to 13th-ranked Northern Arizona as the Cats traveled down to the walk-up Sky Dome. It was Taco Tuesday on Saturday, as Daller sparked his team with the longest punt return touchdown in program history. Julius Davis had a SportsCenter top 10 hurdle for a touchdown, and MSU went home with a big 34-10 win. The momentum carried into victories over the next 4 conference foes in Idaho State, Cal Poly, UNC, and Weber State. Then it was a top 10 showdown in Bozeman on November 15th against UC Davis. In front of a national audience, the defense stole the show, as Captain Caden Daller had a Player of the Week performance for the 2nd week in a row. The Cats rolled to a 38-17 win. MSU started FCS regular season play with a top 3 game and will end with one as they face the number 2 Grizz this Saturday. Reporting in Bozeman for MTN Sports, I'm Grace Lawrence.
Grace and Kyle, thank you for your coverage, and you can catch all of the Brawl of the Wild action right here on Q2 this Saturday. Coverage starts at 11 a.m. with kickoff slated for noon. And be sure to stick around for after the game for the MTN News post-game show.